The Baal HaTurim tells us that Parshas Tetzaveh is the only parsha in the Torah that Moshe Rabbeinu's name is not mentioned. This is from Parsha Shmois, where Moshe Rabbeinu was born, all the way until Chumash Devarim. And the reason for this is because in next week Parshas Kisisa, Moshe Rabbeinu says to Hashem that if you're not going to forgive the Yidden, v'im ayin mecheini no, erase me from the Sefer that you have written from the Sefer Torah. And therefore, even though Hashem ends up forgiving Moshe Rabbeinu, nevertheless, Moshe Rabbeinu's name is omitted from one parsha, from Parshas Tetzaveh. What the Rebbe is discussing in this sikh is why Parshas Tetzaveh specifically, especially that the story of Im Ayin Mechenino is actually in next week's parsha. And the Rebbe wants to see the connection to Parshas Tetzaveh and to the details in Parshas Tetzaveh. Another thing, says the Rebbe, we need to understand is even though Moshe Rabbeinu's name is not mentioned, but the parsha is discussing Moshe Rabbeinu quite a bit in this parsha, a lot in this parsha. In fact, the very name of the parsha, V'ata Tetzaveh, is referring to Moshe Rabbeinu. You should command the Bnei Yisrael. And V'ata means the very essence of Moshe, expressing his essence even more than a name would represent. So seemingly, this idea of Mecheni, that his name should be erased, is yes, his name is not being mentioned, but there's something even more about Moshe Rabbeinu that's being mentioned, is his very essence. How do we understand this? Says the Rebbe, we're going to understand it by first understanding what Moshe Rabbeinu was asking and why he was asking this, that v'emayin, if not, Mecheni, you should erase me from the whole Torah. Seemingly, Moshe Rabbeinu's whole identity, his whole metzius, is all about Torah. And here he's giving up his connection to Torah, that he should be written in Torah for who? For people that are worshipping the Egel, for people that made the Egel, people that are going completely against the Torah. And number two, says the Rebbe, what is even the connection between the two things? If Hashem doesn't forgive them, then it should be erased from the Torah. What is the connection between these two things? So Rashi says that Moshe Rabbeinu is saying that people shouldn't say that I wasn't worthy to daven for the Yidden, to get forgiveness for the Yidden. But really, if you look at the psukim, it sounds like Moshe Rabbeinu is interested in getting the forgiveness for the Yidden, not only about what people are going to say about him. And more importantly, when we're speaking about saving Klal Yisrael, is this what Moshe Rabbeinu would be concerned about, what people are going to say? Says the Rebbe, the explanation is that Moshe Rabbeinu is really, his very, very essence is absolutely one with the Yidden. We see this, that when the Yidden sin with the Egel, what does Hashem say to Moshe Rabbeinu? Lech reid, you need to go down. Now, your whole greatness, all of you is all really about the Yidden. If there's a Yerida, there's a descent in Yidden, there's a descent in Moshe Rabbeinu. The connection, the oneness of Moshe Rabbeinu with the Yidden is even a deeper one than his connection with Torah. In fact, this is similar to Hashem himself. On the one hand, we say, that Hashem and the Torah are all one, and yet we say the Yidden are rooted within Hashem, even in a deeper and higher place than Torah. The Rebbe says the same thing is true with the Nesiim, that even though they invested themselves completely in Torah, but their oneness with the Yidden is even in a deeper level than with Torah. And the Rebbe speaks about specifically to their followers, to the Talmidim, those that learn their Torah, etc. The Rebbe says this is the pshat that Moshe Rabbeinu is putting himself on the line in this way, that he says, "V'im ayin," and if not, completely erase me from the Torah. That means that his absolute dedication for the Yidden, his Mesiras Nefesh for the Yidden, and his oneness with the Yidden is a much deeper one than that his connection with Torah. And furthermore, for who was it? For every single Yid, even for those that sinned in the Egel, those that are separating themselves from the Torah. Because since his iskashrus with them is a deeper one than with Torah, therefore, even if they sinned, there's never that disconnection between him and the Yidden. And this is what he's saying, Im ayin mecheni, if not, erase me. That means he's saying, if the Torah doesn't leave room for this forgiveness, then erase me from the Torah. And that itself reveals the deepest connection between Moshe Rabbeinu and the Yidden. That helps reveal the ultimate and deepest connection between the Yidden and Hashem, and that automatically causes the kapara, the atonement, which then reconnects the Yidden with the Torah as well. The Rebbe says, now we can understand the connection to Parshas V'ata Tetzaveh. The Rebbe says, one of the pirushim of V'ata Tetzaveh is that you, Moshe Rabbeinu, the word Tetzaveh means connection, joining. You are going to be the one that's connecting. You connect all the Yidden. V'ata Tetzaveh is Bnei Yisrael. You connect all Yidden to be together. And the Rebbe explains, going back to this idea of a name and V'ata. As far as the name of Moshe Rabbeinu, a name is already a certain level, a certain aspect. Even in Neshama, there are a few names, but it doesn't come to the very essence of the Neshama. As far as the name of Moshe Rabbeinu, we would only reach to what's called the level of Giluyim up above. In other words, high, great revelations, but it's still not the very, very essence. And mitzad that darga, we're not going higher than Torah. And mitzad that darga, there could also be differences between one yid and the other, and there isn't the absolute unity. But as far as the Va'ato is concerned, when we go to the very essence of Moshe, this, which is even higher than Torah, this goes and it causes that Achdus also amongst the Yidden, we're revealing the deepest essence of the Neshama of the Yid, even of those that did the Egel, and therefore, this is what's bringing this kapara, as we said before, and their connection in an open way with Hashem. And that's the Ata Tetzaveh. Moshe Rabbeinu is connecting the very essence, attaching all the Yidden together. Says the Rebbe, this will explain the continuation of the pasuk. The Ata Tetzaveh is Bnei Yisrael, the Yikhu Elecha, they should bring oil to you for the menorah lighting. And the question is a famous one, why they're bringing it to Moshe and not to Aaron. Aaron is going to be the one lighting the menorah. Says the Rebbe, Aaron on his own would be lighting the menorah, it would be only those kind of lamps or those kind of yidden that are deserving, that are worthy of being lamps to light and to shine with Hashem's light. But again, as far as the essence of Moshe is concerned, every single yid is shaykh to this. Every single yid can be brought to be shining with Torah and mitzvahs. So once Moshe, they bring the oil to Moshe Rabbeinu, now Aaron could go and light and ignite and make every single one of these yidden illuminate and shine. So that's the pshat of the Yikhu Elecha. This now connects also with the other aspects of the parsha, where it speaks about the chinuch to kahuna, where Moshe Rabbeinu is preparing the koyanim to be koyanim. The pasuk says, "Va'ata hakrei v'lecha." You're the one that should bring Aaron. You're the one that should be preparing the koyanim to be koyanim. A similar sort of idea. The koyanim are supposed to be influencing the yidden, but again, it could be that they're only going to influence those yidden that have already some sort of connection. But as a result of it happening from Moshe Rabbeinu, now they can inspire every single yid. Another thing in the parsha is about the ktoiris, the incense. One of the spices, one of the things in the incense was chelbana, which actually had a very terrible smell. From which Chazal learn that a fast, when a Yidden are fasting to the Eibishter, but if there's no Poishe Yisrael, if there's no sinners involved as well, then it's not going to be a proper fast, it's not going to be a proper tshuva, etc., and achieving what it's supposed to be achieving. Again, what do we see over here? That the Ktoiris represents that what's becoming an incense, even that which doesn't have a good smell, or even those that are chas v'sholem sinners, all of them have to be part of Klal Yisrael. And this is why this too is in Parshas Tetzaveh, including speaking towards the end of the Parsha about the special time of the Ktoiris, when the time of Yom Kippur, when the God will bring the kapara once again for all the Yidden. And the Rebbe concludes that this is obviously an amazing Hayrah in Avodas Hashem. And that is the Avas Yisrael that Moshe Rabbeinu has. It says, "V'yahavta l'reacha kamoichi." You're supposed to love your fellow like yourself. But Moshe Rabbeinu is loving the Yidden more than himself. What's himself? Moshe Rabbeinu's identity, as we said before, is about Torah. But here he's putting Torah on the line for the sake of Yidden. This Avas Yisrael is deeper than kamoicha, deeper than the union of Torah inside of him. And in a similar way, Moshe Rabbeinu gives us the koyach that we too should act in this particular way. And now we go back to understand that when Moshe Rabbeinu said, where Rashi quoted, and Moshe Rabbeinu says, that if I'm not going to argue this for the Yidden, v'im ayin, mecheni no mesifrecha, because people are going to say, Moshe Rabbeinu wasn't deserving to daven for them. What Moshe Rabbeinu was saying is, if I'm not going to put myself on the line, if I'm not going to have this Mesiras Nefesh, what are people going to learn from me? In other words, Moshe Rabbeinu is giving us the character that we should learn from him this sort of Mesiras Nefesh for another Yid, to put ourselves on the line to the deepest extent for the Avas Yisrael. And the Rebbe concludes with the obvious lesson in Hayrah, in Avas Yisrael, that we're not only supposed to have Avas Yisrael for every single Yid, but Mesiras Nefesh for Avas Yisrael, which expresses itself, as the Mishnah says, to be Oyev es Habriyos, to love every single person, and Makarvan LaTorah, and bring them close to Torah.